Welcome back, everybody, to the Even Your Dynasty show.
We just got breaking news in.
Welcome back, everybody, to the Even Your Dynasty show. On today's video, we are going to talk about some of the international free agent pitchers that are available on the market that appear to be getting posted and guys the Giants could target. I think all three of these guys are players that the Giants could use in some capacity. Obviously, the Giants have a huge need on the pitching staff as a whole, whether that's in the starting rotation or the pen. So these guys could fit in different capacities. I am focusing on the pitchers because frankly, with Murakami and Okamoto, I believe, they're both kind of corner infield types that don't really fit the Giants' needs right now. With Chapman, Devers, and Bryce Eldridge all kind of locked in there, I don't see the need there. I don't see the fit. I don't see the team investing big time money over lots of years on another corner infield type. So I think those guys are probably unlikely to sign here. So I'm kind of ignoring them for now. If something changes and they start chasing them, maybe we'll dive in a little deeper. The idea for this video was brought from one of you. I'm sorry, I cannot find where the person requested it, so I can't give credit to who it was. But hopefully, drop a comment in there. I'll definitely shoot a thank you to you on this video. But big shout out to you guys. And if more people have ideas for stuff you guys want to hear from us, make sure you throw it in the comments. We do pay attention to that stuff. We want to give you guys what you're wanting to hear about. So yeah, make sure you drop a comment if you have anything that you really want to see from us. So the three pitchers, we're going to kind of go through all of them. The first thing, before I even jump into that, I think we all need to be aware of the Japanese posting fees, which how that works when they post a player from Japan, there's a 45-day window for them to sign with a major league team. If they sign, the way the posting system works is the team, aside from the contract you're going to be paying the player, the team is going to pay 20% of the first $25 million of the deal to the club in Japan that they're getting them from, 17.5% from the next 25, and then anything over the 50 million, they have to pay 15% of that. So, if you sign $100 million contract, you're paying $5 million on the first 25. You're paying, if my math is correct, it's like 4 point something million on the next. And then it's, 15% of the last $50 million. So that ends up being, I think, about 15 or $7.5 million. I think it comes out to around a little over 16 million. So on some of these big deals that are $100+ million, you're going to pay an additional, 16, 20, $25 million to the club in Japan. So Korea has a little bit different rules. Their rules are 30-day window, and then I don't have the breakdown there, but there is one player from Korea that I'm going to have listed here. So starting off with the number one international free agent pitching target, Tatsuya Imai, who is 27 years old. He's going to be entering his age 28 season. His birthday's in May, so next season's actually going to be his age 28 season. He's 5'11", 154 pounds. He's a right-handed pitcher. 2025, he threw 163 and 2/3 innings, 1.92 ERA, 178 strikeouts with a 0.89 WHIP. If you go through his career, his max innings is 173 and a third innings. He threw that in 2024. So he's already pretty well built up. Should be able to handle a major league workload pretty much right out the gate, which is a good sign. Although there's the way they in Japan they do the 6-man rotations could be certainly an adjustment for him. Came out to 9.8 Ks per nine, 2.5 walks per nine, 0.3 home runs per nine. I know Japan's been dealing with a little bit of kind of a dead ball era, so there are a lot of pitchers there that are keeping the home run numbers down. Some things to keep in mind with Japan, they throw a slightly smaller, tackier ball. So things like spin rates, velocity, movement, it might not be, perfect translation from Japan to the US. So that is something that always gets, factored in. It's a projection with all these guys. You can't, aside from the level of competition, you can't just assume they're going to come over and all the movement profiles are going to match up exactly with what they did. But we're going to kind of run through some of the notes here on Imai. He's got a little bit of he's got a low release. Its average release height is 5 feet. The MLB average is 5'8". So that's lower than 96% of right-handed pitchers. His fastball velocity averages about 94.9. It's extremely flat shape. That's probably because of that, low release point. One thing that is, noted with a guy like that is he throws a lot at the knees. I think one of the adjustments he would need to make when he comes to the majors is he does need to get that ball up, and he should be throwing a lot more up at the top of the zone. When I think of low release, especially as a Giants fan, I always think of Madison Bumgarner. Obviously, he's a lefty as opposed to a right-hander in Imai, but if for those of you that obviously watched him, which is most of you, he threw that fastball. He lived at the top of the zone with that fastball, and he just kept going higher and higher. You just get a ton of chases on that. His pitch is tunneled well off of it, especially that slurvy breaking ball. But he utilized that kind of flatter fastball he had in that low release to go at the top of the zone, and he would get a lot of guys swinging under it. I think that's an adjustment that Imai is going to have to make at the major league level if he's going to be successful, and I can't imagine any team that signs him, whether that's in San Francisco or elsewhere, would not be making that adjustment with him. Has great command. He is a strike thrower. Threw his fastball for strikes nearly 70% of the time. A little bit below average as far as like swing and miss, especially off the fastball, but I still believe that number could jump up, and the chase number on that could jump up if he were to start throwing it more at the top of the zone. He has a very interesting profile with his slider. He actually throws a quote wrong way slider. It actually averages about 2.5 inches of arm side movement, which is very abnormal. There's only a couple guys that do that. There's not a lot of precedent in Major League Baseball for, success. I know like pitch models are not going to like that, but it is something that you kind of watch it. You can see the shape on it, and I would recommend pulling up highlights of him. I think it could be a pretty effective pitch for sure, but it is kind of an interesting thing. He gets a lot of strikes with it, has great command, and gets a lot of whiffs. So it had a lot of success in Japan. That averages about 86.3 miles per hour. And then his splitter, 85.5 miles per hour, has plus vertical and horizontal movement, high spin pitch for him. Gets a lot of whiffs, so that has a chance to be a really successful pitch as well. So I really like his profile. The only thing is he is kind of a smaller frame. He's 5'11", 154. Just kind of a side note, like I wonder if that'll hold up well over a full season. Some guys do. Some guys they need to put on a little bit of weight so they can last deeper into the year. I kind of wonder how that might impact him. But not every guy needs that. You look at a guy like Yamamoto in LA, and he's definitely got a smaller frame, but he, still hasn't had really any arm issues or issues like that. So it could very well work out just fine. I view him as more of a front end starter, like a number 2 or number 3. His contract projection right now, I think this is what Passan kind of threw out there. I could see him around 6 for 106 years, $150+ million. I think you're looking at 25 million a year plus AAV over around 6 years. If you're going to go after a guy like him, I think the Giants are going to need 2 starters, kind of no matter what. If you're going to go after him, that's going to be your front end guy, I think, and then you're going to try and get like another back end of the rotation starter. Next on the list, we have Hiroto Saiki. He's 27 years old, or he's actually 26. He's going to turn 27 on November 7th. He's entering his age 27 season. He's 6'2", 174 pounds, right-handed pitcher. 2025, he threw 157 innings, a 1.55 ERA, 122 strikeouts, a 1.06 WHIP. His max innings is 167 and 2/3 innings in, I think that was also in 2024. Averaged only 7 strikeouts per 9, 2.5 walks per 9, and 0.3 home runs per 9. Another strike thrower similar to Imai. Obviously doesn't walk a lot of guys, but he also doesn't get a lot of swing and miss. And we're going to kind of run through his profile a little bit. There are some positives. He gets huge extension which is about 7 to 7.5 feet on his pitch, with an above average release slot. So I think anytime you get somebody that has a different release slot than you see around baseball, there is going to be some kind of advantage there. We've seen it. Obviously, an extreme example of that is a guy like Tyler Rogers, who throws that, he's a submariner that throws at an angle that is not even sniffed by any other pitcher in baseball. And it's a tough adjustment. So getting that big extension, if you're thinking of guys with like massive extension, a guy that we really like is Freddie Peralta. But he's got a more vertical, Saiki's got a more vertical release point than he does. Because of that vertical release, he doesn't get a lot of horizontal movement on any of his pitches, and we're going to kind of run through them. But he gets a lot of vertical movement. And there are going to be some things that he should probably tweak as he gets into pro ball. So the positives, 93.5 mile per hour fastball with plus vertical movement, gets about 21 inches of vertical movement, has below average horizontal, as we kind of mentioned. You kind of plays almost like a sinker at that point. That could be pretty effective. He has a very tight slider, only gets about 3 inches of vertical, 4 inches of horizontal. It averages 83.3 miles per hour. It's a pitch that team is probably going to need to tweak that profile in some capacity. And then his splitter, he throws it at 86.5 miles per hour, 10.5 inches vertical. He has 4.8 inches of horizontal movement on the arm side. Contract projection for him is about 4 for 64 million. To me, if you're going to sign a guy like Saiki, you're looking at him as more of your back end guy. And then you should still be going and chasing a guy like Ranger Suarez, or pursuing a trade for a, Freddie Peralta type, or, more of a front end type of starter. That I think if you want to go that route, you should probably go get more of a front end guy to go with him. With him, if you look at his delivery, it reminds me a little bit of Sasaki. Just the delivery. Obviously, his stuff is not as explosive and as good as Sasaki's, but just you look at the delivery as kind of the hesitation at the top with his leg kick. It just kind of very similar, and the higher release point. It'll be interesting what a team does with him if they sign him. Like we mentioned, he's going to need to tweak the slider, but one thing he does really well is he does spin the ball really well, gets really high spin rates on all of his pitches. So that kind of leads you to believe like there's some pretty solid room for improvement on all that, to where he could develop a better profile on that pitch. The last player we're going to talk about is Cody Ponce. Now, this is a former major league pitcher. Played in Pittsburgh back in 2020 and 2021. He was a second round pick by the Brewers back in the day. He's 31 years old. His birthday's in April, so he's going into his age 32 season. He's 6'6", 255 pounds. His career innings, or his career numbers, he's thrown 55 and a third innings, 5.86 ERA, and a 1.54 WHIP. That was in 2 years with Pittsburgh. Struggled a ton. Went to Japan for a while. Pitched this last season in Korea, and is looking to make a comeback to the majors. He won the Korean quadruple crown. They track the leaders in both wins, strikeouts, ERA, and then they also do winning percentage, which he went 17-1 in Korea with in 180 and 2/3 innings, 1.89 ERA, 252 strikeouts, and a 0.94 WHIP. That was good for 12.6 Ks per nine, 2 walks per nine, and 0.5 home runs per nine. Tied a Korean League record with 18 strikeouts in a game. Obviously, we saw it. It was talked a lot about with Jung-Hoo Lee. It's kind of the equivalent of like AA competition there. But I don't think you should just ignore like what he did there. And there are some kind of positives with his profile, that his velocity's up a little bit. It's now sitting. I read it when back in 2021, he was at about 90, in the 93.5 to low 94 range. Supposedly he's ticked that up about a mile per hour. He can touch 96 now. He talked about when he was in Japan, he learned how to spin the ball a little bit better. That's a pretty common thing in those the leagues in Japan. He's spinning it a little better, so he's got a little bit better movement on some of his breaking pitches. He does throw kind of the kitchen sink at teams or at hitters. He throws a on top of his fastball. He throws a cutter, a slider, a curve, and a changeup. And with that, there is some precedent as far as guys that have come from Korea and had success in the majors. Recent years, Ben Lively, Eric Fetty, and probably the most famous one, I think, that's going to be well known by Giants fans is Merrill Kelly with Arizona. So there are some players that have done it. Now, given his age, of the league he's coming from, everything, I don't think you're going to see him get a massive deal. And I think when you're looking at just a couple $1,000,000, like, I don't think it's going to be a minor league deal. I do think he'll get like a major league guaranteed deal, but it would not shock me. There's not really any projections out there, but it would not shock me if he's a guy that only gets like, $2 or $3 million a year to come back on a very short term deal, like a 1 year prove it or a 2 year deal on small money, a couple million a year. I could see that being the case. And he'd be a really interesting one. He was obviously being a starter in Korea. I would really like to see them bring him in. Honestly, regardless of who else they sign, I would love to see them bring him in as kind of a bulk guy that could maybe even compete for like the 5th starter spot. But the plan being, hey, we're bringing him in to pitch out of the pen, but he'll compete in spring training for that 5th starter spot. And if he wins the job, he wins the job. I would love to get him in because I think he's a really low risk guy with the contract he's likely to command. And, there is some upside there with his ability. So I don't think he's a guy that's going to come in. I would never predict someone to come in and have a Merrill Kelly type career on the back end of Kelly's career here that he's had since, he came over at, I think, 30 years old to Arizona or 31 years old. And he's been really good for like the last 5 years. I don't think I'd ever predict that out of a player, but there is some upside there with what we've seen. I mean, even Eric Fetty, he had a really good year for a terrible White Sox team. Last year in 2024, and then in 2025 he backed it up. He ended up in oh God, I think he ended up in St. Louis, and he had about a 3.6 or 3.7 ERA, so he was really solid there. There's some upside there with some projectable upside out of Ponce if you bring him over. And then just kind of a little side note as far as where the Giants could be an attractive destination for anybody that's wondering, he is actually George Kittle's brother-in-law. Kind of a interesting fun fact about him. So that's the 3 guys. So we're gonna, those are guys that I think the Giants are gonna have varying levels of interest in all of them. I think Imai is probably the highest upside. Saiki's a big, he's a bit of a project, but you could see the upside there with some of the spin that he has, some of that ability, and then kind of the different, motion, arm slot, big extension. There's something to work with there. And then Ponce is just, I think, a really low risk, medium size reward option that's out there. So hopefully you guys enjoyed it. If anybody, if you do enjoy the content, you enjoyed this video, please do hit the like, hit the subscribe, all that good stuff. Merchandise is now available. You can find it on, and the website is open at EYDShow.net. That is the website. So check it out if you haven't already. And then we will continue posting stuff to like both the regular side and the membership side in the coming weeks. Have a couple more player interviews lined up. I think we're not going to have one this week, but we should have one. We have a couple lined up for, I believe, November 10th and November 17th. Couple different prospects that are going to join us. So definitely keep your eyes open for that. And the off season's underway. We will go dive deep into different free agent targets, trade targets. Hopefully we're going to have a lot of news to talk about this off season. There's a lot that the Giants have a lot of room under the tax that they could work with. And, hopefully they have a willingness to go over if the right opportunities come around. So lots to talk about. We'll definitely, be diving into all of it throughout the offseason. So appreciate you guys. Go Giants, and we'll catch you next time.